Hello, this is Angelo Stralopa, CEO of Positivity Coaching, and you're listening to my podcast. Before we start, let's do a little bit of a centering exercise. So please sit in your chair or wherever you're sitting in a way that is that feels comfortable, but in a way that is just bring your attention to how your body is sitting, and bring your attention to the texture and the feel of the seat and the temperature, and then focus on your breath and inhale at 2 and exhale at 4. Inhale at 2 and exhale at 4. Bring your attention to something that is very dear to you, perhaps a picture of your favorite animal or a picture of one of your beloved people, perhaps a child that is laughing, something that is very dear to you and also cheerful. And then let's open up the space for the next 50 minutes that we will be together. And let's start from here. Let's start with a poem from David White. It's called Sometime. Sometimes, if you move carefully through the forest, breathing like the ones in the old stories who would cross a shimmering bed of leaves without a sound, you come to a place whose only task is to trouble you with tiny but frightening requests, conceived out of nowhere, but in this place beginning to lead everywhere. Requests to stop what you are doing right now and to stop what you are becoming while you do it. Questions that can make or unmake a life. Questions that have patiently waited for you. Questions that have no right to go away. So let me share my screen with a presentation, and we hope that we will produce good questions for ourselves, and a small introduction about me that Elizabeth has already done. This is the model that we will be working on today. It's called SNAC, from the words stop, notice, accept, curious, and kindness. It's a model based on the work of Dr. Naumburg, and we will introduce each step, and we will try to create some questions that are meaningful. And I would invite you not only to use the chat box, but the company of a paper and a pen. I think that will help you. That will help the questions and the insights to remain with you for a much longer time after the webinar has been completed. And I always say that the road from the mind until the paper is very long. And someone else said, we write in order to understand what we are thinking. So with these two thoughts, I think that you will encourage yourself enough to write down in goodwill and perhaps in your own language, in whichever language you feel comfortable with writing. And let's start introducing each step and start inquiring what does it mean every step for us. First step is stop. And we mean by that to just stop whatever you're doing. Speaking about the coronavirus crisis, we have experienced a big stop. So stopping, by definition, requires us to begin again. We can always begin again. The first step to a new beginning is to stop now. So in order to begin again, we have to stop now. And I want you to imagine yourself having to stop. And let's think about a metaphor. Having to stop in a stop sign, meaning when you drive, that means that you have to stop your vehicle, you have to stop your car and wait because someone else will be passing, and that someone else has a priority over you. So picture that, bring that into mind, having to stop for someone else because someone else has the priority. And perhaps it gets even better. You don't know who that person is, and you don't know if that person will cross in front of you, but you have to stop, and you have to give the priority to some other person. As I was reflecting about that, interestingly enough, I noticed that in the Greek language, sometimes we use the word meet someone in relation to answer. So when you're meeting someone, when you expect someone to cross the street because you're on a stop sign and you have to allow that the other person to pass because the other person has the priority. It's like meeting with that other person. And that is an answer to something. And I wonder, this answer is surfacing because you have a question. And the question is what is bringing you to the stop sign. Now, the stop sign is something which does not last for long. But how about the red sign, when you really have to stop and wait for a certain amount of time? And that means usually when we are in our routine, where we are inside our heads, inside our, the daily routine, going for our work or coming back or going from one work to another or whatever is in the list of to do of every day, then you have to pull the handbrake perhaps and change the station on the radio or do something else. So can you bring that back into mind when you are stopping and you know that you will be stopped for, 20, 30 seconds, depending on the red light, and you don't really have anything to do there, and you're not really very happy usually to having to stop because you are so busy. But sometimes you become more nervous, or sometimes you take advantage of that, and you take advantage and do for a few seconds something that you could not do while you were on the move. And then what do you usually do? Which one of those persons are you usually when you are in the red, when you have to stop on the red sign?
Angelos, do you see that question in the chat?
Yes, now I do. Some part says, but do we really need to go through full stop in order to embrace new beginning? Can we just continue on a different path? Well, that's a good question. And I wonder how can we ask? But I realize that this is a very important question for you that probably implies that you would rather not stop in order to embrace a new beginning. But, stop is an awareness. Stopping something is the beginning of an awareness, or is a beginning of a new beginning, or it's stopping is a change. It could also be, it could also mean stop your movement, or it could also mean stop waiting. Stop waiting. It could mean change what you're doing. Change your routine. Stop waiting. Let's imagine yourself being in a waiting line, and then at some point you can stop waiting. And it could be that perhaps you can go to the next queue that has just opened, who is shorter, or you can move in front and to the front desk of the waiting line that you're waiting and be served, or something else. But it means that I think the question here is how flexible we are, how aware we are, how eager we are to any kind of change, which could imply both stopping the movement, or could imply stopping the waiting as well. Can you bring into your mind situations where you had to stop, and not just with the analogies that I offer, anything in work or in life where you have to stop. Sometimes if you don't stop, you will be missing something. Yes, thank you, Zohar. Zohar says that that's more clear to me. If stopping is also the moment of the change, then it means a lot. It means a lot to us. Yes, stop what you do in order to either do something else, or in order to consider or reflect, or doing the next step, which is to take notice what is happening within and what is happening around you, and then start collecting the data. And we're talking about the data. We're not talking about rationalizing or reasoning about what is happening, because we usually do that automatically. Like, I don't know, do you like it here? No, I don't like it here because there's too much people, or it's too noisy, or, we're rationalizing. And we're just talking about data, noticing the data. Even if new information arises, that is still data. And it will be helpful to be attentive to your noticeability, how artful you are in how you notice things and how you collect data. And it has come to my attention from early on And I noticed with the help of one of my teachers that if you take into account, if you think about the things that you do as a routine each day, for example, taking the bus to go to work, or so that means you pass from the same side of the street each day, and you pass from the other side of the street each day. And what do? Do you notice what is happening around? Do you look out for the information that might not be what you are searching for, but are the information that is available? And the change of the information from day to day means that something has changed in that road, in your environment, in your community. Something has changed. And the first step to start processing is to notice data. And I think if we hone the skill of noticing, we are becoming better and better. And if I assume most of the people here are coaches, so noticing and be attentive to our noticeability is very important as well. It could be a part of the active listening, noticing what is happening. Even if you don't think that is important for you, you will never know until you notice. And on the other hand, if you have a bias that this is not what I am looking for, so I don't really have to take notice of anything here, that means that you will have you will encourage a daily loss of data. So that means you will be gradually disengaged from your reality when you don't notice what is happening. And things are happening. Things are happening in front of you when you're looking for something else. And sometimes they are happening because you don't notice. And sometimes things change for you and these things affect you because you don't notice. And the thing is that this is getting better. This is a skill that can be acquired, and this is a skill that can be developed. So the more you notice, the more you will make yourself able to start noticing more. And what else is there in noticing? What do you have to notice? Or what is your best way for you to notice? What serves you better in order to really notice what is happening? And how many things can elude you? How many things can you miss when you're not observing, or when you're looking but you're not seeing? Can you tell what's the difference between looking and seeing?
Chris has wrote something great in the chat. He says, my father-in-law talks of going back to the bridge. It's a place with a great view, but you usually hurry past it.
Yes. So sometimes I remember at some point a few months ago, a friend of mine was making a metaphor, and he made that comparison between him and the way that he stares when he sees something that is important with a dog. And he said, I like to look like a dog, look like a dog. Have you noticed how dogs are looking when they see something, or when they are searching for something? For how long can they look? So when you go to a bridge, you are at I think that's very good thank you, Neha. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. And I think that, going to a bridge, which means that you have picked up magnificent spot, so you can look from a high point of view, and you can have many degrees, a wide view of what is happening. And usually there are a lot of boats passing, so there is a lot to see. On the bridge, on the bus, at work, there is a lot to notice. And sometimes there is a lot of clutter, and perhaps you're living in an environment that has many pieces of information. And what you want to notice, or what might be, valuable for you, you may need to take a good look, as we say. And yes, as Zafar said, seeing involves some interpretation of what we are looking at. Exactly. So what am I looking at? Have you ever said that to yourself? So what am I looking at? What is the meaning making, or what is important, or what has changed And so if something has changed, what does that mean? There are some signs, there are some posters here. Some things are said, some information is still valid, for example, for events that are for the future and some for events that happened in the past. And everything means something. I mean, if you have a lot of posters of events for the past, that means that there's not much is going on in this area. So there are signs that are saying something, and there are signs that are writing something but don't really say anything, because not all who speak have a voice, or they may not have a voice for you, or that voice may not reach your ears if your ears are closed or attuned to something else, or your focus is somewhere else. Not all who speak have a voice. And I wonder, where do I find my voice and speak it out loud? Where do you find where can you find your voice and speak it out loud? What have you noticed? Where is the best place for you to find your voice? The answer is stopping the morning routine to sit to meditate. Yes, for sure. That's a perfect discipline to start becoming more aware of your noticeability. Yes, you could be looking but not paying attention. Seeing involves paying attention. Exactly. So we need to stop and then notice. Because if you don't stop, you won't be able to notice. Does that make sense so far? I cannot see your lovely faces, but I can read your comments. So, yes, Chris says yes. Okay, so great. Now, let's move to the next one. The next up is about acceptance. And now this is a tricky one, of course, because acceptance does not mean liking, does not mean wanting, choosing, or supporting. What we're talking about here is accept whatever you're struggling with. Accept whatever you're struggling with. That could be time that you don't have. That could be the kids and the noise. That could be the sleepiness. That could be your frustration, staying at home, especially this day with the lockdown. Acknowledge it for what it is, and without judgment. And there's a phrase that's a little bit cliche these days, it's being called it is what it is. So this is what we're talking about. The acceptance. It's not about something that we're happy with. It's about accepting the fact that this is real, that this is our reality, like accepting the fact that we're living in the coronavirus crisis days, and the data is this and that. And we need to accept that. And we know how important acceptance is for a coaching process. If you go back to the coaching curve, based on the bell curve, the first thing to do in order to start your commitment into designing actions for your goals is to accept the situation as it is. Accept that this is how it is, and regardless of whether I like it or not, I had to accept it first in order to start creating new behaviors, start designing actions, start making the choices, start making decisions that will help me move forward to my future, or to my desired future, or to start doing something about it, or take responsibility. So in order to take a responsibility, which I think is so quintessential to coaching, is that the first thing that we have to do is to accept the situation as it is, accept the conditions that we are living in, accept. And it starts from here. It starts from number one. I have to accept me, and not in a narcissistic way, but accept me. Usually the paradox of change is that I accept myself with all the things that are not working very well right now, accepting my weaknesses, accepting my failures, accepting what I have been very consistent in not achieving for a long period of time. Accepting is about managing the difficult themes, accepting something that is, we're talking about here, accepting something that is somehow very difficult to do. We're talking about accepting something which is, very hard to swallow, as we say. Accept something. Can I offer an analogy here? The analogy of the snowball, these souvenirs that you have from different cities that you're going as a tourist, and they have, in a little crystal ball, they have all that snow. They have buildings from the city, and then it has snow that is falling, and you have to, or if you move a little bit, this snowball, then you will see the snow moving around, and you will have to wait until it all falls down. I think by accepting is enabling the snow to fall down so we can see the clear picture. I think before becoming able to accept, it's like watching all the snow, which means we're seeing something which is not very clear, and we have to clear the picture out. And the first step to do that is to accept and ask yourself, who do you want to accept today? And perhaps that's a good way to start. And sharing on the chat box, what would you like to accept? What is hard for you to accept at this point today for you? That has to do with you. It has to do with your world. That has to do with who you want to be in the world. Neha says, could you please share some thoughts about accepting a repetitive action of a loved one that makes one angry despite discussions about not repeating that action? Yes, thank you, Neha. I think the best way to deal with that is to focus on ourselves and focus on what is the implication, how does the other person behavior is making us feel. How am I feeling because of that? And sometimes I'm feeling something that is a little bit very hard to accept. Sometimes sometimes we notice in ourselves the effect of what the other person is doing. And I don't know if that makes sense for you. Sometimes I say, okay, so the other person is doing their own stuff, but look how that affects me. And I don't like me. I don't like that when I'm becoming that person, because it could be that I am being manipulated, or it could be that I'm being just, derailed because of how I react to what the other person is doing. So accepting is more like, the difficult acceptance right now is about, so the other person, let's make a hypothesis. The other person may do that forever and may never stop or may never change. Can I accept that and stop reacting the way that I react? Can I accept that this is regardless of whether I like the behavior of the other person or I don't? Probably. Obviously, I don't. But if the power of acceptance here is that when I accept that this will be my reality. I know that I don't like it, but how do I want to go on with my life? How do I want to go on with myself? Do I want to be angry or sad or annoyed or disturbed or whatever, a negative thing because the other person is doing like that? Why do I see this connection? You say, despite discussions about not repeating that action. So you have made some kind of discussions with the other person. Perhaps the other person said, okay, I got you. You're right. I'm wrong. I will stop doing that. And then he or she will continue in doing that because A, B, C, D reason. And then you are with yourself. And then one thing that you will make good room for you, is when you accept that, okay, so this is what is happening. How do I want to be while this is what is happening? Accept what I have not control of. Yes, Eva, thank you very much. Eva, replied, accept what I have not control of. And Elizabeth said, I'm accepting a lot of unknown about what the future holds because, it's the future, which is unknown. And if you look at it from a different lens, yes, it makes sense. Future is unknown. And by accepting that is like making the peace. I'm not fighting with it. It's not that I like it. It's not that I'm not interested in fighting out. It's that I'm not fighting with that. I'm not in a fight with the unknown. I'm not fight with what the unknown provokes in me. Tammy says, accepting that despite is being unreasonable, the 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. limitation on being allowed to exercise, run or walking outside during lockdown, making social distancing even more challenging as everyone is now on the street at the same time. And you had to accept that you are perhaps, okay, so you are perhaps compliant. If I'm getting you time, you're compliant, but a lot of other people are not compliant. And yes, I think that I can relate to that because that's more or less the situation here. So it's not just about you and the regulations, it's about what the other people are doing. And then you said, okay, so I don't like it, but that does not help me in that conversation that I have with myself. So I accept that this is what it is. And because I accept that, and I think that going back to the couple of words that we had with Elizabeth in the beginning, it's a positivity. It's about, okay, so this is the situation. I don't like it, but what would be best for me is to look at what I can do with that situation. And that helps me distance myself from the negative emotions and a little bit down on that road. There are some new and positive emotions are surfacing because I'm engaging and I'm focusing to what I want to create versus what I want to, what I hate about what is happening. And so focusing is where you focus, as we can remember the work of David Copywriter with the appreciative inquiry. He was saying that where we put our focus is where reality is being created. So when we put our focus in what we want to create, then usually positive feelings are starting to emerge and say, that's the next step. Everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome here. Accepting that I do best. So far says, accepting that I do the best I can to assist my dear mother, who is in a lockdown, the elderly, protected village she lives in. Accepting that I do my best. Yes. But also, yes. I think that accepting that as well is, I assume that this is very important for you, and you have found that this is very helpful, that you have to accept that. Sometimes, in that sense, accepting that means make peace with that. Make peace with that, which making peace finds serenity. And then this comes to mind, serenity versus calmness, because serenity is something, it's an inner condition and calm is an outer condition. So serenity is about making peace with what is happening, is accepting the situation. It's not about surrendering, it's about accepting. And the acceptance is necessary in order to move forward. And let's move to the next step, which is becoming curious. And this is so central to coaching, of course, curiosity, genuine curiosity and constructive curiosity. Now let's ground yourself with questions about your experience and environment. What am I feeling? What do I do right now? And curiosity is a quality that is related to inquisitive thinking, such as exploration, investigation, learning, and becoming curious. And going back to the data that we have collected on the step of notice, because we discussed the second step was notice. So that's the step where we were collecting data and now curious, becoming curious. And let's talk a little bit about curiosity, because these are the data. Are these, what is behind this data? And what else can I understand? And where else can I get data? And can I really be very conscious about what I think? Because sometimes what I think is or data, thoughts and interpretations are so embedded in data. And sometimes we are informed, let's say, by journalists about things or by friends, and we are mixing up data with interpretation. For example, a very simple example, the weather today is good. Is that data or interpretation? I'm curious. The weather is good today is, of course, interpretation, because the weather is good or bad depending on where you are and what do you like and how you would like the weather to be. The weather is rainy, or the weather is cloudy, or the weather is sunny. Now, that is data. Or the weather is hot, or the weather is cold. That is interpretation, because hot for you might mean 28, or it might mean, and I'm talking about Celsius, or it could be 18, or it could be 35, and depends on, what am I accustomed to, or how do I like the weather to be, the temperature. Or the stock market. That was a bad day for the stock market. Well, who says that? Depending on your portfolio, it could be a good day, it could be a bad day. I don't know, right? So, but I think if you become curious, you can go to a different direction, which is more intriguing. And let's think about how easy it is for you to have access to data. Sometimes now the movies are not playing, the theaters are closed, perhaps in most of the countries. But when you're going through the movies guide and you're trying to find out which is a good new movie to see, you don't really get to form your own opinion. Because the information itself is being embedded with the interpretation of the journalist or the movie critic or whoever is writing article. And before even you realize or you get the information of who is playing and what's the genre and what is the plot and what's the director and so on, you immediately and sometimes subconsciously, you already have an idea of whether that movie is good or bad. So we do that every day when we're selecting movies, when we're selecting products in a supermarket or even vote for politicians. It's all been pre-selected and the interpretation is embedded in the information itself. So we're living in a time of fast food and we're also living in a time of fast thought. So we don't really get the opportunity or we don't really get to be very much trained into deliver our own thinking, be the owners of our thoughts. We consume thoughts that are ready-made, fast thought. This is the era of the fast thinking. We live over our heads. We're living out of our heads. We're living in somebody else's head. We don't really get to use our head to make a decision for the movie that we make. Sometimes we don't really get a decision to say that movie was good or bad, even after we see the movie. Can you think about that? We said, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage, change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Yes, the curious text box looks up again. Okay, we will look at all the model again at the end. Thank you very much for that, Chris. Yes, that's a very good quote. That's helping a lot. Thank you very much. How does one make peace with something that invokes fear? It's the same routine, Neha, with trying to find out what exactly is happening out there that triggers that fear. And fear is about avoiding something. And what are you avoiding exactly? And it's not the thing that can be addressed in 5-10 minutes, but for sure it's about looking at the eye of what makes you fearful. They say, talking about movies, they say that the art and movies, the art is a window to our soul. So how do you look at the art as a window to your soul? How aware you are that when you go to the movies or when you start the dialogue with any piece of art, any kind of art, that you are actually opening up a window to your own soul. So you see not the world outside, but the world inside. That's what you're seeing. You can use art as a process of self-awareness. Now, the last step is kindness. We want to respond to ourselves and others with our mistakes and all with kindness and observe how that helps things get back on track. Now, kindness is a behavior marked by ethical characteristics. It is a pleasant disposition and concern and consideration for others. It is considered a virtue and is recognized as a value in many cultures and sometimes in many religions as well. So what can you notice about kindness and how, in which degree is kindness embedded in your own life? There are so many things and many ways to start. Like you look at all these little rocks, little stones, you can see this different kind of messages. And as coaches, and we love the change. And the thing is, where are we and how are we dressed up all in kindness with the right intention, with kindness as our intention, and what we're doing. Are we doing that with kindness? And I borrow that quote. Well, I had changed that a little bit from Eduardo Galeano. Am I not what I do in order to change who I am? Galeano said, we are what we do, we are what we do in order to change who we are. So it makes sense. The way that you're trying to achieve, the things that you want to achieve defines you. Are you doing that with kindness? And can you notice how many people are seeking human kindness? We're talking about the common humanity. How open you are to stop and notice and accept with curiosity what is happening and who and what is calling your inner kindness, your inner human kindness. And what does that kindness can make you feel? And what does that kindness can make others feel? And I selected the dandelion because you cannot force it. Perhaps you can blow, but Dandelion goes wherever it wants, sometimes uninvited, and whichever direction, and it chooses its own pace. So, have you ever thought about thoughts, ideas, actions of kindness that are being spread, are being diffused, are being in a very wide angle around you and can travel very far and can have a lasting effect. And sometimes you don't notice that, but you're carrying a little piece of a dandelion. How about that? How about your human kindness acting like a dandelion? And I like you to close that picture and hold that picture with you as something that you have and as something that you're given this gift. And I think we should also be mindful of that when you're giving a gift, you're also receiving a gift because it's the energy and the positive emotions, going back to positivity, the positive emotions that you're creating for your own self as well, for everybody. Cameron Christian says, love the metaphor of a dandelion to kindness. Yes, thank you very much. I find that very moving. And yes, kindness, you don't have to force you. You cannot force your kindness. You can offer your kindness, right? And you can offer that to whatever you do. Do that out of kindness. Kindness breeds kindness, as Eva. Yes, Ed. Thank you very much. This is Angelos Trolupas, and you can listen to my podcast on Spotify, Apple, and Google.